Hello everyone, with the list apparently growing by the month, it appears World War II combat flight simulators are very much back in fashion. Of course I use the term back in fashion very loosely, we're not talking battle royale level popularity here. Instead it should be regarded as a niche hobby engaged in by flight sim types, such as urethral sounding or goat porn. So today I'm going to take Cliffs of Dover Blitz edition and ram it down your unseeing eye, asking the question, is it worth buying? Before we delve too deeply into the sim, let's take a look at the background of Cliffs of Dover, because like your mum's back catalogue on RedTube, it does have quite an extensive history. The original Cliffs of Dover was released in 2011 by 1C Games to much fanfare. Unfortunately, that fanfare proved to consist of flatulent drunks rather than professional trumpeteers, as upon release the game was universally panned by critics and players alike. Apparently upon release there were more bugs than one would find coughed into the underwear of a street hooker, and the frame rates were so abysmal it would have been more enjoyable to play the game over a series of postcards. The only thing that saved the game from the fiery depths and pits of simulation hell were a group of community modders collectively known as Team Fusion. With a few patches, Team Fusion were able to turn what was a World War II PowerPoint presentation into something that resembled a flight sim. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Eventually Team Fusion received permission to remaster the whole game, and the culmination of their work was released in December 2017 as Blitz Edition. With its sordid past salaciously accounted for, let's take a look at the present state of the game. As with every other sim, we'll start off by taking a look at the settings. The realism settings are fairly comprehensive and there are no major issues or surprises. Setting up the controls is quite easy, although the game has a weird way of identifying the controllers in the list. In most sim games, if you forget what button the control was bound to, you simply open up the control menu and press the button. Not the fucking case here, I'm afraid. In this game you have to either rebind controls like a maniac or take a flight and hope eject wasn't bound to that mystery button. The graphics settings are also pretty much standard fare, so let's delve into the game itself. Cliffs of Dover is what developers call a survey sim. This usually means you get a lot of flyable aircraft, and as the list here attests, you can see there are quite a lot. However, you generally lose out a lot on fidelity. To use an analogy flight simmers are familiar with, instead of watching your favourite midget porn extravaganza in 4K, you're just looking at the thumbnail. To be fair to the game, the engine management and temperature control are quite well done, but the Stuka of Damocles hanging over this game is the flight modelling. World War II aircraft were difficult to operate, particularly during the takeoff and landing phases of a mission. In this game you get no real sense of that danger. Taking off and landing is not much more difficult than it is in War Thunder. Even notoriously temperamental aircraft such as the Bf-109 and the Spitfire are a piece of piss to land. Additionally, all the flight models feel rather samey and generic. With the flight model busily digging its own grave, let's talk about the graphics. I would say the graphics are among the best I've ever seen in a flight sim. I would say that if I'd entered a coma in 2008 and just woke up and seen them. Unfortunately, the graphics are just a step or two above those in Rise of Flight. There were occasions during low-level flight where I was fucking terrified one of those monsters from Minecraft was going to jump out and kill me. The saving grace here is the cockpits are actually quite nicely done. That's of course with the exception of the cockpit glass, which appears to be missing. I feel like I've parked my aircraft in a dodgy estate and some chav has come along and kicked the fucking windows out while I was on lunch. For those of you who love all things arboreal, apparently the trees are now collidable. The sea, clouds, roads, fields and railways all look fine, however everything just looks a little bit slapdash. It's not unusual to see a railway making its way up a 90-degree fucking cliff, or a road mysteriously disappearing into the sea. Now there are many of you who'll say, "Laubi, with your obsession on the graphics and flight modelling, you're just being a giant dick. It's all about the combat." And you're right, I am a giant dick. When we take a look at combat, the first thing we need to do is examine our own expectations. Over the years we've been watching the same 50 or so gun camera reels over and over again. In each one there's usually a short squeeze of the trigger followed by the target either dramatically catching fire or breaking into smithereens. We forget two important factors. We don't know how many other aircraft were shooting holes in the aircraft prior to the gun camera footage beginning, and most of the gun camera footage comes from propaganda reels. Our expectation becomes that the reward for pulling the trigger on target is to see smoke, flames or at least some parts flying off the aircraft. If the trigger reward is not deemed suitable, we get on the forums, piss and moan like Tumblrites until the devs finally cave and accede to our demands. And the result is a damage model that looks pretty much like this. A damage model such as this is the equivalent of a prostitute telling you've the biggest, juiciest, most satisfying cock she's ever put betwixt her legs. It's an everyone gets a trophy damage model that flatters us on our prowess, and we gladly accept and swallow the lie. I'm going to finish off with the AI, because the AI is very special. The AI is in fact so special that if it were a person it wouldn't be trusted with anything sharper than a crayon. Yes indeed, that special. This rather neatly brings me back to my original question, is it worth buying? Unfortunately, there are many more fulfilling and interesting things you could do with your $25, such as make 2 people in the third world have a knife fight for it on Fiverr, pay for 5 Hummers in advance from your favourite crack hoe, or buy a couple of Airfix models and recreate the thrill of combat in stunning 3D. All that's left to say is, I thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to dislike or tell me to go fuck myself below.